So we're going to take a look at the Ureteric Stent registry in EPR and just demonstrate very quickly how to document actions to stents and how to view the stent registry to see which patients in the trust currently have stents inserted requiring actions. So when we go to a patient record, details about stent insertions are seen and documented in Speciality View. To get to Speciality View, we scroll down to the bottom of the left-hand menu and click on Specialities. This brings up a list of all the Speciality View pages that we have in the trust, and when we scroll down, we can click on the entry for the Ureteric Stent Registry, and this will bring up the Ureteric Stent Registry page. This patient, you can see, currently has had no previous entries in the stent registry, and as far as we're aware, doesn't have any stents inserted currently. For every action on a stent performed in the trust, we need to document a stent registry form that tells us when that action happened and what the next action due is. So for any stent insertion, change or removal, we need to compute a new form to document that action in EPR. So let's show how to insert a stent for this patient. So this patient would come in, have a stent inserted, could be anywhere in the trust, on an operating list or in radiology. We'd click open a new ureteric stent registry form, and that'll pull up this simple power form that allows us to document that action. So first of all, we'll put in the name of the responsible consultant, and then we will put in the name of the operating surgeon, which could be the same person if it's the consultant, or could be a registrar or anybody else. We'll list the speciality for which the stent has been inserted, and we'll put down the laterality, and as you can see, you can put a left, a right or bilateral stents in. In this case, we'll just insert a left-sided stent. This box on the right hand side is just a prompt to remind you to refer to urology if you want urology to manage your stent. This will not make a referral, and that has to be done via the consult urology stents pool in EPR as shown at the bottom of the screen here. In this case, we'll pretend that the consultant is a urologist, so no referral is required. So once we've completed this page, we can then go to the side that we've inserted the stent on the top left hand side here. So this is a left stent. We put that we've inserted it. We can enter the stent serial number, the size, the length, the reason for insertion, and then we need to document the next time an action is due on this stent. Now that might be a stent change or a stent removal, and could be any period of time in future. So let's say we were planning on removing this stent in 4 weeks' time. We'd click 4 weeks, remove, put today's date, so T for today, N for now, and then click the green tick at the top left of the screen, and that will have documented that stent insertion. When you refresh the page, you can now see that this patient has a left ureteric stent inserted on today's date, and the next planned intervention date has been calculated automatically from the duration that you filled out on the form, and we can see that the next action for this particular stent is going to be to remove it. If we want to see all of the stents inserted in the trust, there is a tracking board which is accessed by clicking the View menu and scrolling down to Ureteric Stent Tracking. When we click on that page, this will then bring up a list of all of the patients in the trust that have a ureteric stent inserted, the responsible consultant, the service that the patient is under, when the next intervention date is due, which is that calculated date from the duration that you put on the power form, and what the planned intervention is. So in this case, for example, you can see that this patient has bilateral stents in. the last intervention date, the planned next intervention date, and what the next intervention date would be. And you can see in this case it shows red because that intervention is overdue. This is, of course, a test patient. At the top of the screen you can filter by MRN, by name, and by speciality to show just stents for your speciality. Next time we act on this stent, we need to document that on the same form, that action again. So just make a note of the side that the stent is on, open a new ureteric stent registry form. Again, the responsible consultant will remain the same, although you can change it. You can obviously put a new operating surgeon in. The speciality will have automatically populated. Make sure that you select the right side for the stent. So if this was a left stent previously, we need to select left stent again to make sure the action is attributed to the correct one. And this time we're going to say, okay, we've removed the stent. And so this time we'll say stent removal, the date of the intervention, and the time, and the reason for removal can be documented. And then when we save this form and refresh, you'll be able to see that that stent has now been documented as being removed, and that patient will now have been removed from the tracking list as they no longer have any stents inserted. If you want to see a patient's history to know, what's happened to their stents in the past, you can click View Ureteric Stent History, and you can see a sort of scrolling view of everything that's happened in the past to that patient's stents. So just to recap, any action to any ureteric stent in radiology or in theatres or in outpatients should be documented with a ureteric stent registry form, in which you document the action that you've undertaken, be it insertion, change or removal, and then you must document the next required action for any stents that have been inserted or changed, and then you'll be able to track the next actions due on the ureteric stent tracking board.